emperor created auditors of the Council of State. Their number was carried up to 350. They were divided into three classes and attached to all branches of administration. The Council of State formed thus a nursery of instructed and enlightened men, capable of carrying on advantageously the administration of the country. Familiar with all great political questions, they received from the government important missions. This institution supplied a great want, for when a country has schools of jurisprudence, of medicine, of war, of theology, it is not contrary to reason that it should not have one for the art of governing, which is the most difficult of all arts, for it embraces all the sciences, exact, political, and moral. I prepared for my son, said the Empress St. Helena, a most advantageous position. I educated for him a new school, the numerous class of auditors of the Council of State. Their education finished, and having come of age, they would someday have filled all the important posts of the empire, strong in our principles and in the examples of our predecessors. They would have been, all of them, from 12 to 15 years older than my son, which would have placed them precisely between two generations. Most advantageously, maturity and experience and wisdom above, youth and activity below. The Council of Disputed Claims was instituted as a special tribunal to sit in trial upon cases concerning public functionaries and to decide appeals from the councils of the prefectures upon cases relating to the furnishing of subsistence to certain violations of the laws of the state. The desire of the emperor to raise to high consideration the political bodies is manifested by the creation of the dignity of Grand Elector, by the honors with which he surrounded the president of the legislative body, by the detailed exposés of the state of the empire, which he caused to be laid before the legislative body, by the importance which he imparted to the opening of the sessions, regarding himself as the first representative of the nation. He considered himself bound to give an account of his acts before the constituted bodies. Hence, the opening of the session of the legislative body was never under his reign of vain ceremony. He did not come to seat himself upon a throne with all the externals of royalty of the 16th century in order to repeat stupidly the words of his ministers. But standing before the legislative body, he communicated frankly his ideas. It was not weakness concealing itself under the guise of power. It was power of its own accord, rendering homage to the constituted bodies of the state. Instead of influencing the elections, Napoleon often recommended to those around him not to offer themselves as candidates for the Senate. He told them that they could arrive at that dignity by another road, that it was necessary to leave to the notables of the provinces the satisfaction of choosing for themselves. The principles which guided the emperor in the choice of public functionaries were much more reasonable than those in use at the present day. When he named the chief of administration, he did not consult the political shade of color of the man, but his capacity as a functionary. Thus, instead of inquiring into the political antecedents of his ministers, he only required of them the special knowledge needed. Cheptel, a celebrated chemist, was charged with the duty of opening new paths for manufacturing industry. The learned Denon was appointed director of the Museum of Arts. Moulin, Minister of the Treasury. If the finances of the empire were so prosperous, it was in a great measure owing to the fact that Gaudin, Duke of Gaeta, entered the Ministry of Finances under the consulate and continued in the office until 1814 in order that the road might be open for all improvements. The Court of Cassation was charged with the duty of doing for the laws what the Institute did for the sciences. The court was required to present every year a compte rendu of the improvements of which the different branches of legislation were susceptible, and made known the faults and defects which experience had demonstrated. One should also observe that in the institutions of the empire there was a continual movement acting from the circumference towards the center, and from the center reacting towards the circumference, like the circulation of the blood which in the human body flows towards the heart, and from the heart reflows towards the extremities. On the one hand, the people participate by election in all political offices. On the other hand, the bodies politic are presided presided over by men appointed by the central power. The great dignitaries of the empire presided over the electoral colleges of the largest cities. The great civil officers or the members of the Legion of Honor presided over the other colleges.